Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And in this video, I wanted to talk about what's in store for T-Mobile in 2022. So I know I already made a comparison video with T-Mobile versus Verizon and how that looks in 2022. But in this video, I wanted to talk about what's in store for just T-Mobile in 2022. So we already know the network story. T-Mobile has been talking about that very loud and proud. So in 2022, they go from 200 to 250 million covered with 2.5, which they're already working on now because they hit their 200 million goal 6 weeks prior. So each week after that, more radios, more upgrades happened. So they're already working towards that 250 goal now in 2021. And then by the end of 2023, they want to be at 300 million covered with 2.5. So those are ambitious goals for the company, but they set forth the required investment that they guided in the analyst day or during the analyst day. And they said everything that they talked about and guided is funded by the capital plan that was presented. So 2022 is an interesting year. Everybody's going to be more competitive. Verizon will have C-band, AT&T will have C-band. We'll talk about that in their what's in store for 2022 video, but they'll be more competitive. Speeds are going to start increasing, and hopefully we see some good competition from that. Now, T-Mobile has to stick to their plan for 2022. That's all they have to do. They have to stick to the plan and be T-Mobile. Don't try to be Verizon. Don't try to be AT&T. Be T-Mobile. Get the call centers back up and running to the, I think, stateside. They run a model of 55% of call center reps stateside. That's the model that they run. That percentage did drop. I did check in with a source of mine about 2 days ago. That number did significantly drop. And then the offshore percentage increased quite a bit. So they need to get that back up to the 55%, 60% mark to where we can have the team of experts back stateside and less of the reps offshore overseas. So they need to increase that again. Sprint, just for reference, was about 10% stateside on their call centers, and everything else was outsourced. T-Mobile about 55%, was getting closer to 60, but then it took a huge drop. People were quitting, so now they're trying to get that back up to that number. So that needs to be fixed in 2022 as they move into, heavier migrations, and then a bigger network. A bigger network for them equals more people to have to serve. And that will in return also mean customer service and a team of experts are going to be hit with more people calling in, and the volumes are just naturally going to increase especially as they get into home broadband. There are people that they just want to talk to somebody. I don't think we're all the way there yet with the digital approach. I think it's coming, but there are still some people out there that just want to talk to somebody if they have an issue. So that's just naturally going to happen. So another thing in 2022 that T-Mobile really has to work on is getting that retail distribution out there. I know we talked about it pretty much all year that retail distribution was increasing. And then we got word at the analyst day that they would get into 1,000 Best Buys and about 2,200 Walmart stores. But there's still so much of a gap that's left to be covered. So to kind of give you some numbers, T-Mobile covers 325 million pops with their underlying LTE network. They haven't gotten 5G to all of those pops yet. They cover about 308 million today. They need to get to 325 million to get 5G to that footprint. The retail distribution covers about if I remember correctly, 270 million of those pops. So under this combination of the merger, they want to get the retail distribution to all 325 million pops. So as you see, there's a gap. There's a long way to go. Now I gotta ask my guy, I gotta look into how much of that pop now is additionally covered with that Walmart footprint, because I know that helped a lot, and I know T-Mobile has been rolling out stores, but there's still quite a gap on the retail distribution versus the footprint that they actually cover. So they have to work through that in 2022. Likely have to roll out hundreds of more stores to really close the gap to matching their own footprint with retail. It just helps. Even if it's just one store within the small community, it lets people know, hey, T-Mobile is actually here in our community. It does help. It helps 100% of the time. So that's what I'm looking forward to in 2022, and I think that's going to be a big part of T-Mobile's play in 2022. And then, of course, the network expansion. Now, I want to talk about that briefly, and that's probably where I'll end the video. A lot of people still saying T-Mobile behind on network footprint. And while that's true, they have covered a lot of the United States. As a standalone company with less resources, I think they've done a phenomenal job of getting the coverage where it is today. So I did some research, and it looks like, based on some claims made by T-Mobile themselves, they cover about 2.56 million square miles of LTE, which, if you look at AT&T, they cover about, I think the last time I saw was 2.67 million square miles. And then Verizon says they cover more than 2.69 million. So T-Mobile they're closing the gap, but they're still behind. As you can tell by the numbers I just referenced, they're behind. Now, the additional 10,000 macros that they wanted to build are going to close that gap even further. So there should be substantial coverage where most people travel to. It should be covered, like, just for example, my trip from here to Dallas, I was covered the entire way. And surprisingly, in some areas where AT&T did not have coverage, T-Mobile did. So my anecdotal testing, again, I had a better experience on the T-Mobile network. Now, scientifically, that may be a different outcome because there's still coverage needed beyond just that interstate, right? There's still coverage north and south of it on the smaller highways that T-Mobile may not be so strong at. So my user experience was I had a good experience going, I-10 and then crossing into I-20, going all the way up to Dallas. And there was coverage. And I remember back in 2015, 2016, T-Mobile stunk up the place. It was terrible. It was HSPA roaming on a limited connection, texting work, calling a little bit, and that was it. Couldn't do much else. That was a complete night and day experience with the N71 and then the Sprint Keep sites filling in some of those coverage gaps. So that's a focus, or should be a focus, in 2022. But honestly, to be quite honest with you guys, I don't know if that's based on the fact that they covered 2.56 million square miles. I don't know if that's taken priority anymore, because if you think about it, 2.56 million is a large footprint. That's a large, huge footprint. So yes, they are still behind, and you may have recently traveled to an area where T-Mobile has no service, or you may know of an area where T-Mobile is weaker. They'll get there eventually, but I don't think the fact that the footprint is so large, I don't think they're going to put a bigger emphasis or priority towards that anymore. They'll fill it in over time. Like they referenced, by 2024, they'll have a large amount of those 10,000 sites built out. but they really have a large footprint as it stands today. Still behind Verizon and AT&T, but they have a large footprint for the fact that they were a standalone company, and it took them, years of resources to get that going. Having to buy the A block of band 12, having to deploy that, then getting the N71, having to put dual radios up and touch sites again. It took them some time, but it looks like it's here, and they are expanding the network. So I think those are kind of like the three things that they need to work on. I think the migrations are going to happen just naturally. I'm hearing some rumblings on the back end that T-Mobile is looking to transfer financing. They feel that's the last part to the puzzle of getting the base migrated at a much faster pace, exponentially faster pace. That seems to be the pushback, is the financing. Customer goes to the store wanting to migrate, finding out they have to pay $1,400 on 2 devices that are still early in leasing. They back out. So T-Mobile is looking into transferring financing. They have not gotten much pushback, if any, on the plan change from going from Sprint to T-Mobile. It's been 99% of the time, it's been because of the financing and the outstanding amounts that people still have on the Sprint leasing. So that's one thing that they're looking into. And then another hurdle, I think I talked about this in another video, that they have to climb and get over is they have to get more of the Sprint base into Band 71 devices. It has to happen. A lot of the Sprint devices prior to the merger were not banded for Band 71. They had AWS, PCS, N41, Band 41, but not the 71. It wasn't banded. It was a new band to the industry. T-Mobile had to create its own software for it. So not a lot of phones before the merger were banded with Band 71. So during and after the merger approval, they started getting some phones in the supply chain that had Band 71, but those are far and few in between. So that's what I think is sums it up. That's what's in store for T-Mobile in 2022. Of course, the Sprint keep sites, you can include that. That'll ramp up. The shutdown happening in June, the decommissioning of the 35,000 Sprint sites. But I think we're all familiar with the networking side. I mean, they've talked about it almost monthly now. They're at conferences speaking of it. So most of you that follow the channel are aware of this happening. And going forward, we'll see what happens. But I think that's what's in store for T-Mobile in 2022. And we'll of course be tuned throughout next year, and we'll see what they do. Maybe they strike some crazy deal that we don't know about yet. But other than that, I think that's what's in store for T-Mobile in 2022. And let me know what you think about it in the comment section down below, or what you may think is in store for T-Mobile in 2022. Thanks again for watching. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe if you haven't. Make sure to follow my social media outlets for more updates and interactions. Thanks again for watching. This is Tyrone with Tech Life. I will see you in the next one. Peace.